everybody to the education segment of the Cobra live stream. And today we're going to be, I think it's like episode 5, we're going to be looking at what is a cryptocurrency. Doing a little bit of a deep dive into what, it's cryptography and a currency. What does that mean? Why does it exist? What is the decentralization of finance? What is Bitcoin? How does it work? Stuff like that. We're going to get into a lot of good stuff. We have all of this content like I've covered on streams before, just go all the way to the top of our Discord, and it's literally the first channel that isn't announcements. Hit education. We've got a Crypto Cobra's guide to pretty much blockchain basics. Everything you need to get started in understanding this world. And then we've got a solidity guide. Everything you need to get started with influencing this world, creating tokens, creating decentralized exchanges, stuff like that. And we've also got a trading guide in the works. So that's effectively how you can make money in this space. So go through this, look at all of the content. It's down here. It's all organized, pretty much like a curriculum, like a threefold curriculum. So yesterday we took a look at the, in the last episode, we took a look at the crypto slang. That's down here, what all of this stuff means. Today, we're gonna move on and take a look at this. So, what is cryptocurrency? It's basically electronic cash. But the main thing that makes a cryptocurrency different to a regular currency is the fact that it's decentralized. It's a type of finance that is not issued by a central authority like a government or a bank or anything like that. Not in the way that the dollar or the pound or the euro, the yen, any other fiat currencies. Remember from the last episode, fiat is effectively government-issued currency, so like regular paper money or anything that's minted by a government and centralized and controlled by a government, right? So cryptocurrencies, not centralized, not controlled, no trust on that system, and I'll get into what that means effectively. Cryptocurrencies are created, exchanged, and overseen by, instead of a human, a distributed peer-to-peer network. So instead of a collective group of humans, it is effectively smart contracts or pieces of code talking to each other on that can be a blockchain as well, but a blockchain is also like a distributed ledger of information. We'll get into all of that stuff. So to understand the centralization and decentralization thing, let's take a look at this. Because effectively, to understand why this thing was created and what value it holds, you kind of need to take a look at what problems it solves, right? What problems a cryptocurrency solves. I feel like that's a good kind of way to approach learning, right? So there's plenty of issues with our current monetary system, which because our current system does not give the users of fiat currency any control really over their assets. So if you tomorrow had like 84,000 pounds in your bank account, your bank has the authority to not give that to you. It'll remain numbers on a screen as long as your bank says this is going to remain numbers on a screen. You need to go and like imagine if they just say no. If you try to do an ATM transaction, they have your account, you do it on their system, they can just say no. And it's not as extreme and nefarious as that, but it's still something to bear in mind. And it's not just computers. It might be computers that, because the question arises, okay, sure, if a cryptocurrency is entirely digital and it's being used by, it's being verified, cross-verified by all of these distributed nodes and stuff like that, isn't the banking system, like a financial system, effectively the same thing? Isn't that just computers cutting off your transactions, or if they detect something shady, isn't it computers doing the same thing? Yes and no. It might be computers locking you off, or the notification might come from a computer, right? That you're not allowed to do whatever you want to do with your money. But the direction of that decision comes from a group of humans. With a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, a blockchain built, a finance built on a blockchain, you don't see that. It's immutable because everything is, obviously you can transact and you can, basically you can transact a cryptocurrency on a blockchain, but what it doesn't allow you to do is influence these transactions in the way that a centralized entity is able to do with fiat currency. With a blockchain transaction, it's 100% that's going to go through. It's like it's built on rock. It's like it's etched into marble. But with a regular currency transaction, a system failure or something like that, technical issues can cause your transaction to not go through, right? If your account is blocked for whatever reason, they do this when you try to upload money, as it were, to like a trading platform. Your bank will literally just like block your card with no explanation. You know, it's not something that's explained to you beforehand. They're like, oh hey, you know, just to let you know, if you try to put money on crypto.com, we're gonna block your account. You'll have to call us. They can do that, but with Bitcoin, you know, it resolves that problem. It takes the problem of trust. That's what it is. You have to trust that these humans, these people, trust you. They need to check in on you, and you need to check in with them before you make a transaction type thing. And it's not like you have to call them every single time you want to make a transaction. But if you think about when banks were first built, that was how, you know, that operated. That was the operating model. You know, you had to ask your bank to do something on your behalf. This solves this issue. No, it's a trustless system, which with, you know, even though it's ironic because it's called trustless, but, you know, someone would tend to trust this a lot more. I know I, for one, trust computers and pieces of code way more than a group of humans influencing what I can and cannot do with my money, if that makes sense. So, you know, blockchain, again, allows users to not have intermediaries, no middlemen controlling the system that your money is flowing through. So money and its movements can exist outside of the control of governments and centralized authorities because of their decentralized nature. This is why this is such an enormous thing. You know, the advent of this type of technology is enormous because it's a shift of power, is what it really is. It gives power. I know it sounds cliche, but it takes power away from the, you know, the few who are holding it, and it distributes the power to the many. It really does. Just by virtue of the way that this technology is built, what you see is a huge shift in the nature of human society, human existence, and all of that stuff. We'll get through, you know, we'll get into all of that interesting stuff down the line. But in sort of in brief, this is what decentralized finance has allowed people to do, right? Get around the issue of trust being required, getting around the issue of intermediaries, basically. And it really started with the other aspect is that it's, you know, cryptography and a currency. That whole thing started with Satoshi Nakamoto. There's another problem that this solved, which is called a double spend problem, right? The double spend problem. We talk about this in one of the sections down here, I'm fairly sure. Well, I have the white paper, and I have the double spending definition pulled up here as well. Let's take a look at the actual white paper, because it's good to take a look at the source of whatever it is that you're talking about. I will put this on the education notes as well, on the What is Bitcoin section. If it's not there already, it probably is, but effectively, this is the abstract of Bitcoin. This is where it all started, guys. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash, right? So there's no, you know, no people in the middle. No people in the middle. It's completely peer-to-peer, right? Get rid of intermediaries as much as possible and create a completely P2P, person-to-person, peer-to-peer, node-to-node payment system, making the whole process decentralized. This is what they were aiming for, allowing online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, sure, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. This problem right here. What is double spending? This is something that can occur in a cryptocurrency. So it's the question of, these are blocks on a chain what stops me from going in, or what stops a hacker from one of these movies from, you know, tapping away at their keyboard and there's lines of code and they suddenly just go, oh, I'm in. Like, how do you stop that from happening? And how do you not, you know, if it's pieces of code on a computer and you can type in code and it turns into money, why can't you just type in, I have $1 million? Betty across the street has no dollars now. I have all of her dollars. Why can't I do that? What stops it from happening? That is double spending, is what they're trying to prevent, basically. The fact that the idea, the risk that a cryptocurrency could be used twice or more. Transaction information within a blockchain can be altered if specific conditions are met. Conditions allow modified blocks to enter the blockchain. If this happens, the person that initiated the alteration or the transaction can reclaim spent coins. It's effectively, double spending happens when you try to basically do that, and the way that they get around the risk of people altering a blockchain and doing sort of fraudulent things is through a consensus mechanism. We've covered this on previous streams as well. We've talked about the Byzantine generals problem, and we've talked about how Bitcoin uses proof of work as a consensus mechanism. This is just more of the immutability of Bitcoin, right? So it solved the problem of intermediaries with decentralization, and it solves the problem of double spending. You know, it solves the risk, it mitigates the risk. It solves the problem and mitigates the risk of double spending through a consensus mechanism. This one uses it uses proof of work, right? We'll get into what this means in another sort of educational segment, because I feel like this is quite a lot for one episode. But yeah, we'll cover consensus mechanisms next time, guys. But effectively, what you should know is that a cryptocurrency is a decentralized currency, a decentralized digital representation of value that is built on a pure peer-to-peer system called a blockchain, which is a set of blocks of code which contain hashes of the previous code and a place to kind of fit in the new code and a trace of the old code, organized into like a chain, which is called a blockchain. It allows you to maintain complete control of your money, completely peer-to-peer, cuts out intermediaries, you have no double spending problem, and you have no centralization problem, right? In brief, that is what a cryptocurrency is. There's plenty of types, right? The cryptocurrencies are like Bitcoin, Ether, things you can use to buy and sell, basically, the best known blockchain technologies. Regular fiat type characteristics you do see in these, but again, they have the two advantages that we just covered: decentralization and the double spending problem. The immutability that this carries solves the double spending problem. Usually it acts as a global currency, store of value. Makes sense. The other type is a platform token. Ethereum is the world's biggest smart contract platform. It's effectively designed to facilitate the creation of decentralized apps. We'll get into what that means in the Solidity guide as well. A smart contract platform uses the blockchain to construct a distributed database that all computers on the network have access to. Because the database is present on every computer, you alleviate the main issue of traditional servers, a database getting shut down or destroyed. You see, decentralization, again, all these types of coins benefit. Utility tokens, also referred to as protocol tokens, are used to solve a very specific problem. They're created to resolve an issue. They can be traded, purchased from an exchange, or earned, kind of like platform and currency tokens. But every utility token is created to solve a real-world issue, right? Real-world utility, good use cases, like in-game items, digital advertising, all kinds of stuff. A utility token functions in a similar way to an API key, which we'll cover in cryptography, the actual cryptography aspect of cryptocurrencies. Granting the holder access to a certain service basically solves a specific problem. And then you have transactional tokens. The primary focus of these is to allow people to quickly transact, you know, cheaply and efficiently across borders. Say you want to send money back home, you know, all of these problems of banks being like, oh, you got to send this here and send that there, and they don't want their currency to depreciate and this to happen and that to happen. So you have all these stupid rules. You get around them, right? Traditionally, you would have to use like a MoneyGram, but they charge you fees. They charge you money, which is not great. So this is where transactional tokens come into the picture. You can basically shoot your money across because, again, it's completely peer-to-peer and it gets around the issue of centralization. I think that's enough for this episode, guys. I will wrap it up here. If you're catching this on YouTube, do leave a like and comment. You know, any questions that this episode brought up, do leave the questions here. And if you have any suggestions for next time, you know, obviously we are going to cover this, you know, syllabus in order. So, you know what's going to be on the agenda for the next video, as it were. But if there's something specific, like an example of something in the real world or a specific question, you know, drop it down in the comments or put it in the general chat if you're here live, guys. And we'll wrap it up here. Check out our Twitter as well. And yeah, thank you. Corporate Lightspeed. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you.